We have got a sweet Jeep Gladiator in the shop today, and although this truck came from the factory with a lot of LED options, there are a few really good upgrades you can still do on it. In this video, I'm going to show you guys one of them. These are the Morimoto sequential turn signals you can get for these things. They go in the fender flare, and I'm going to show you guys how to install them and just how much cooler they are compared to stock. Now, in order to do this upgrade, you do have to remove the fender flare from the Jeep itself, and you can do it with very basic hand tools. A 10mm socket, an 8mm socket, and an automotive pry tool is all you're going to need to get this done. You can do it at home without removing the wheel and tire from the Jeep, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Now, the first thing we're going to do today is remove the 4 10mm bolts that hold this flare to the vehicle itself. You can start with this very front one here. Second bolt is in this hole here in the fender liner. The third bolt's right here. And the fourth bolt is right here. At this point, we can use a pry tool and remove this little plastic fastener right here. You can get behind it and just pop it toward you, and we will need it later to reinstall this, so don't lose it. Now at this point, if you followed the instructions so far, you're almost ready to remove the flare from the vehicle itself. Now, there's a handful of plastic clips holding it to the sheet metal on the Jeep, and it's gonna put up a little bit of a fight, especially if you've never taken it off. So start from one side, work your way across. If you break any clips, you can find them on Amazon. You can get a pack of like 25 of them for like $6. It's really not that big of a deal. So starting on one end, you can pop it free. Work your way across and just slowly release the clips as you go. Now if you get to this point and the flare is still hanging on a little bit, you can leave it like that because we've got our factory wiring connector right here. It's a really convenient time to unplug it. Go ahead and press this red tab, pull it toward the outside of the connector like that. And now you can press in on this black piece here and it will come apart. Just like that. At this point you can pull the flare off the vehicle entirely now that your wiring's undone, and bring it over to your table. Now, we were able to borrow this Jeep Gladiator from a guy named Inca 4x4. I'm gonna link his Instagram below. He was kind enough to leave his Jeep with us for 2 full days while we test a few different products on it. And he's got a handful of cool products already on the Jeep, like the KC Highlights Pro 6. You probably saw that in a couple of our videos. We really love that product here. And a handful of other goodies as well. So if you've got a Jeep Gladiator, definitely subscribe to our channel. We got a lot of stuff coming out on it. And check his out as well, because he's always on a different adventure. Now, the first step in removing the original light is standing the flare up like this. And as you can see, I put a little mat down here just so I don't scratch the flare. If you've got a painted flare, the last thing you want to do is scratch it now that we've gotten to this point. We've got a 10mm screw right here, and we've got a plastic clip right here that's holding this wheel liner to the flare itself. Go ahead and remove those. Just to give myself a little extra room to work, I'm going to remove this second retainer right down here. Make sure you keep those. We will need them when we reassemble this thing. At this point, you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver and a T30 Torx bit. What we need to do is loosen up this cover here so that we can access a few of the screws that hold this light in place. Loosen this screw, and this will now fold over, exposing these 2 screws underneath. Now, there is this plastic subframe here holding the light in itself, and we do need to remove the screws that hold that, and you'll see the light harness that runs all the way to the back of the flare here. We're going to take our new harness from Morimoto, run that along the same way, and attach it to the vehicle when we get to that point. Using that T30 Torx bit, go ahead and loosen these screws. We've got these bottom ones here. At this point, we need to detach our light from this backing skeleton here. So there are 3 more of those T30 screws. There's one in the center, there's one on the left, and there's one down on the right. Now's a great time to work your way across, release that wire harness. We're going to pull that out with the light at the same time. Go ahead and disconnect your side marker light. Now at this point, with our harness pulled and our side marker light disconnected, we can lift this up, move the skeleton back a little bit, and our light's going to come out just like this. Now the light itself is double-sided taped at the top, and that will put up a little bit of a fight, so just be prepared for that. But at this point, we have our old light out, we can finally install our new one. Before we dive right back into the reassembly, you do have a decision to make. On your original LED turn signal, you have this side marker light that is amber from the factory, and it is already LED, but what most people will do at this point is, in the interest of upgrading things, upgrade to the smoked cover. As you can see, it gives it a little bit of an appearance difference. It's a little bit brighter, looks a little bit more modern, and you get rid of that ugly amber side marker. If you prefer to run the factory side marker, you certainly can. You can just transfer it over to your new light. No matter what, we need the screw that's holding it on, so go ahead and remove that screw. It's that same T30 Torx bit that we've been dealing with. And finally, we can set this thing off to the side. Now here we have our new turn signal assembly from Morimoto. As you can see, we've got a very modern looking turn signal. This is really what we've come to expect from Morimoto with their XB line of products for the headlights, tail lights, and stuff like that. Now when it comes to installing the side marker itself, it's very simple. It's the exact same way that the original one comes off. You can clip it in up front here. Everything's going to line up real nice, and we've got this one single bolt hole in the back. We thread our original bolt into and tighten it up. At this point, this connector goes to the red and black connector on our Morimoto harness. And that's all there is to it. Simple as that. Go ahead and lift this flap up. You can rest your new turn signal assembly into the flare, line everything up properly, and then start reinstalling the hardware. Overall, this thing fits exactly like the factory piece did. It's almost identical on the back side. Nothing really to it at this point. You can reinstall your screws one by one, make sure everything fits well, make sure there's no gaps anywhere. If you'd like to replace the double-sided tape along the top of the turn signal, it's totally up to you. Some guys do. There was not double-sided tape included in the kit. It's really not a big deal. There wasn't much of a gap up there on this particular Jeep. Even though it seems daunting at first, this really isn't that bad when you break it down step by step. All we have left to do is run this harness back to where our factory wiring is going to plug in. You can follow the exact same path that the original harness came out, zip tie it wherever you see fit, and let's get this flare over to the Jeep and reinstall it. Now that we've got our flare all reassembled, we can bring it back on over to our Jeep, plug it in, clip it back in, make sure everything works how we want it to, and we can jump over to the passenger side and do the exact same thing. As you can clearly tell, even though this Jeep Gladiator came from the factory with a lot of different LED options already, there are still a few good upgrades you can do. Now, if you've got a Jeep Gladiator like this one and you aren't quite sure what else you can do to it, subscribe to the channel below. We're going to be playing with this one all week long, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what you can do to one of these to really brighten it up. Thanks for watching.